and welcome. Tonight, PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar promises to resolve the security challenges Imo State is facing as he continues his campaign in the southeast. Group of southern Kaduna residents endorsed Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi, vow block vote for him and the party's governorship flag bearer in the state. FCT chapter of the All Progressive Congress set to mobilize residents to ensure victory for the party's presidential candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in next year's election. President Vladimir Putin discusses next move on Ukraine during meeting with his military chief. Russian forces launch another wave of missiles at Ukraine's infrastructure.
And on business news tonight, Nigeria's central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, is expected to appear before the House of Representatives on Tuesday next week over the new cash withdrawal policy.
And on sports news tonight, gallant Atlas Lions of Morocco succumbed to Croatia in the third-place match of the FIFA 2022 World Cup, losing 2-1.
The tempo of political activities continues to rise, with contestants and their supporters striving to outdo their rivals and woo more supporters to their side of the divide. Today, we begin in Imo State, where the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, is promising to resolve the security challenges facing the state and also revive commerce and industries there. Mr. Abubakar was speaking at the Hero Square in Owerri, the state capital, where his campaign trail made a stopover today. The venue was packed with various support groups dressed in colorful attires and carrying posters as well as banners.
The Hero Square in Owerri, the Imo State capital, buzzes with campaign songs as supporters of the People's Democratic Party turned out in large number for the campaign of the party's presidential candidate, Mr. Atiku Abubakar. He arrives the venue to the cheers of supporters. The event kicks off and members of the PDP presidential campaign canvass for votes for their candidates as the leadership of the party warns against any act of disunity among members in Imo State.
The only man that will link us with Twilight Thoroughfare with the rest of Nigeria is Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. When we get some applause, under Atiku Abubakar, when we become president, our victory shall not be denied us again.
That you're ready to work for the PDP because we are currently in great numbers, and I'm aware that when you move into the communities, we shall better the votes and defend our votes.
The party has to be united. I want to make it clear to everybody, we will not accept division in our party.
Having been conferred with the traditional title in Imo State, it's homecoming for Mr. Abubakar as he assures of better days for the residents of Imo State.
When you elect me president, I will come here, sit down with you, discuss with you what is your problem, and together we will work out a settlement. With the Igbo nation for many decades. I know that you are businessmen, I know that you are traders, and so on and so forth. I want to assure you that if I have the opportunity and you elect me, business, trading will pick up again.
In 2019, Mr. Atiku Abubakar on the platform of the PDP polled a total of 334,923 votes in Imo State, with a margin of over 194,000 votes ahead of the All Progressive Congress candidate, President Muhammadu Buhari. The PDP presidential candidate is hoping to sustain the lead in the 2023 presidential election. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the indigents and supporters of the Labour Party in southern Kaduna have thrown their weight behind the party's presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, and the state governorship candidate, Jonathan Asake, promising to give them block votes in the 2023 general elections. They describe Mr. Obi as the best out of the other presidential candidates who has the capacity to rescue the country from the numerous security and socio-economic problems. At an awareness rally held in Kafanchan, the headquarters of Jema local government area, they vowed not to vote for the PDP any longer, as they had done in the past 23 years.
Labour Party members and their supporters gather in their hundreds in Kafanchan, Kaduna State for an interactive session with leaders of the party. The aim is for the formal endorsement of the party's presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, and Jonathan Asake as their preferred governorship candidate ahead of the general elections. Southern Kaduna has over the years remained a strong electoral base of the People's Democratic Party, but these Labour Party stakeholders say they are determined to change the present equation with a pledge to vote massively for Peter Obi and other Labour Party candidates.
I call on everyone to back us up today that Peter Obi is our presidential candidate. Can I get a yes from everybody here? Are you going to vote Peter Obi?
In every house in Southern Kaduna, there is Obi dirty. There is obedience. And one thing that they don't even know, 90% of those people that are in PDP, I assure you, they will vote Obi.
Putting the issue into perspective, the former president of Southern Kaduna People's Union, who is also the Labour Party governorship candidate, the endorsement of Peter Obi is a loud statement of the mood of the people of Southern Kaduna, who are yearning for a new leadership that they believe will be more responsive to the socio-economic and security challenges ravaging the zone.
The desire of our government and our tribe and our readiness is to ensure that you sleep in your home and you close your two eyes. That you go to your farm and you come back. That children will remain in school. That our traders will continue in their trading activities to create the wealth that we need.
The group also says it is embarking on a door-to-door campaign to mobilize voters for the party with determination to pass their verdict on the type of government and representatives they expect to see at the helm of affairs in Kaduna State and at the federal level from May 29th, 2023.
As part of efforts to ensure victory for the All Progressives Congress in the 2023 presidential election, the FCT chapter of the party says it's poised to mobilize massive votes for its presidential candidate, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. The party chapter made this promise at a rally in Abuja, where the secretary of the party's presidential campaign council, Mr. James Faliki, asked the party faithful to collect their permanent voter cards ahead of the polls. He says that the election of Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the next president will guarantee the continuation of President Buhari's legacies.
The atmosphere is reminiscent of a carnival as members of the All Progressives Congress in the Federal Capital Territory thronged the Eagle Square for the party's mega rally. Amid singing and dancing, party faithful are urged to vote for the APC.
Today, that you are going to see your candidates, the candidates that will run for the Senate and the candidate that will run for the National Assembly, and to crown it all, our presidential candidate.
We stand on what? Continuity. I am standing before you to say if APC is voted in, Nigeria will be greater because we are building upon that which is better than what we met. Standing before you, man, with the conviction that Nigerians, if we work together, will be better.
The Independent National Electoral Commission is presently distributing permanent voters' cards ahead of the elections, and the party's campaign council is urging members to collect their permanent voter cards.
But I need to appeal to you that the only way to success is by collection of your PVC. You have to go back home and mobilize your people to collect their PVC so that on the day of election, they will all be able to vote at the polling units. The results of this gathering today must be shown at all the various polling units in our various wards.
The rally climaxes with a birthday song in honor of President Muhammadu Buhari, who turned 80, albeit in absentia.
Happy birthday, dear President! Happy birthday to you!
As the party faithful make their way out of the Eagle Square, they appear optimistic that victory is certain for its presidential candidate, Senator Bola Tinubu.
Over in Osun State, the resident electoral commissioner of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Mr. Amitiu Adebuke, says the commission is resolved to conduct the 2023 general elections despite attacks on its facilities. According to him, security has been beefed up at the commission's offices across the state to ensure both sensitive and non-sensitive materials are safe. He stated this during an enlightenment rally organized by the commission in collaboration with a group, Power of PVCs, in Osogbo, the state capital. He also warned potential voters against vote trading, noting that a penalty awaits the offenders.
Shortly after all these attacks happened, you all are aware that the security agencies met with INEC, and after those attacks, the commission, in collaboration with ISIS members, the security agencies, the security have scaled up their men. In other words, we have additional men in our various offices. We are properly protected now. We are properly guarded now. We are properly guided now. And everywhere, every place that you see our facility, we are properly protected. Particularly our local government offices. If you go there, it's either you see policemen or you see a civil defense officer or DSS. All of them, they are already manning this facility. So for us, people should not be deterred. People should not be wary. They should not be scared of all these attacks. The intention perhaps of those who are doing this is to make 2023 impossible. And INEC is saying no. INEC is ready for this election, and we are going to go into it. We are going to come out of it, and we are going to be stronger for it. So we are ready for 2023.
Away from politics, we have an update on the tanker fire that occurred in Oyo State, where the government says every step will be taken to cushion the effect of the damage resulting from the incident. Several shops were destroyed in the wake of the fire, which lasted several hours on Thursday, December the 15th, at the ever-busy Apata Junction in Oyo State. Although no life was lost, several shops and goods worth millions of naira were destroyed in the fire, which was caused by a diesel-laden tanker after it lost control and spilled its content.
This fire incident was caused by a diesel-laden tanker that fell off into the gutter, thereby emptying the content on the gutter, which sparked inferno and got several shops burnt along this road. So today's visit was just to do an assessment and condole with our people who were affected by the inferno. It's devastating and it's massive. But I can assure you that as government, a responsive government at that, we are looking at ways by which we can assuage the damage caused to our citizens in Oyo State. And I have done the assessment. I have interacted with the victims of the fire incident, and I have engaged them, and I have suggested a number of steps to be taken. Oyo State government, under the leadership of Engineer Seyi Makinde, will deal with this situation effectively in such a way that the extent of damage will be reduced to the barest minimum.
In part two, after the break, Nigeria Air Force troops rescue 7 Chinese citizens in Kaduna after being kidnapped in Niger State. That's in a moment. Join us again.
With this squad app, I think my customers will understand that it's my own POS. No wuru-wuru, no waka-waka.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television, Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar promises to resolve the security challenges Imo State is facing as he continues his campaign in the southeast. Group of southern Kaduna residents endorsed Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi, vow block vote for him and the party's governorship flag bearer in the state. FCT chapter of the All Progressives Congress set to mobilize residents to ensure victory for the party's presidential candidate Asiwaju Bola Tinubu in next year's election. President Vladimir Putin discusses next move on Ukraine during meeting with his military chief. Russian forces launch another wave of missiles at Ukraine's infrastructure. Security matters now. Troops of the Nigerian Air Force have rescued 7 Chinese citizens who were kidnapped by bandits in Biringwari local government area of Kaduna State. The freed victims are believed to have been kidnapped in June 2022 by terrorists while working on a mining site in Shiroro local government area of Niger State. According to the Director of Public Relations and Information, Air Commodore Edward Gatwet, the Special Forces under the 271 Nigerian Air Force detachment in Biringwari carried out a rescue operation in the early hours of today. He explained that the combat search and rescue operation, which consisted of 35 special forces, was conducted in the cover of the night at Kafani, Doka and Gashwal general areas, leading to the terrorists abandoning their enclaves, weapons and Chinese victims. The men were later flown to the 271 NAF Detachment Medical Center for evaluation, after which they were taken to the NAF-based Medical Hospital Kaduna for further medical investigations. The Kaduna State government has commended the Nigerian Air Force for the successful operation. Governor Yahaya Bello of Kogi State is challenging members of the Nigerian Legion to give the government all the necessary support to curb all forms of insecurity in the state and the country. Governor Bello stated this in Lokoja, the Kogi State capital, during the launch of the emblem of the 2023 Armed Forces Remembrance Day celebration. The governor explained that the ex-servicemen have rendered selfless service to the nation and there is every need to always appreciate them annually.
Serving and retired servicemen, wives and family members of fallen heroes, top government officials as well as clergymen are among the guests at this ceremony to launch the 2023 Armed Forces Remembrance Day emblem. This yearly ritual affords Nigerians the opportunity to celebrate and support men and women, living or dead, that have served or serving in the nation's armed forces. The fallen heroes left behind widows and widowers, orphans and dependents for whom they are gathered to raise support.
Today, several widows and members of the legions are empowered. They are currently organized and many of them are still very active and helping us with emerging security in our local government.
We continue working towards financial strengthening of Legion to empower the widows, also to solve the sick ex-servicemen women's problems.
This support from the government, organizations and spirited individuals will boost the morale of serving officers and engender greater commitment to their duties. This is what Governor Yahaya Bello hopes to achieve as he donates 10 million naira to the Nigerian Legion. He stressed the need to support the families of the nation's fallen heroes.
There are criminals that are masquerading as politicians. I am urging each and every one of you to handle them as common criminals, irrespective of his or her political affiliation. There are criminals that are masquerading as businessmen here in Kogi State. Irrespective of their status in the country, please handle them as common criminals. It is when we take the criminals out that the law-abiding citizens will be able to go about their lawful businesses, and then we're going to have a society that we so much desire.
The governor was subsequently decorated with the emblem by the state's chairman of the Legion alongside other dignitaries.
To other stories now, at least 50 billion naira is expected to be generated through the new Edo Tourism Master Plan annually, beginning from next year, which is more than what Edo receives from the federal allocation. This is according to Foremost finance expert, Mr. Bismarck Uwani, who is part of the team behind the new tourism document. He explained that the state will have to make the most of its comparative advantage in terms of culture and heritage to realize this target. Also speaking after the presentation of the master plan in the Government House, Benin City, Governor Godwin Obaseki promised to do justice to the documents.
What is interesting as you diversify your economy into areas like tourism is that the entire system must work. If the entire system doesn't work, then it just will not work. So government must work for this tourism master plan too. People must feel safe. Government must have a clear plan and execute on building its infrastructure. If there are no good roads, potholes, careless drivers, everything just must work. Because you are telling the outside world, come and see us, come and see how we are. We are attractive, come and visit. And so when you come, you spend money. By the time they come and see you in such state, in such disarray, they're scared. Because someone said, look, the reason why I can't come to your country is because of the way your people drive. It's because I don't understand it, because every time I'm there, I'm afraid. It's because it's like there are no rules.
What Edo State gets from FAC in a year comes to roughly about 48 to 50 billion naira. What Edo State will get from phase one, we're expecting about 500,000, anything between 350 to 500,000 visitors coming here over a period. If each of them spends about $200 to $300 when they come in here, what you get from it, right, will be cumulatively be more than what Edo State gets from FAC. In other words, Edo State, and that's just revenue, not to talk of the linkage effect. Edo State will be having more economic activity from tourism than what it gets from going to Abuja to get its share of derivation money.
Efforts to ramp up sugar and ethanol production in the country appears to have received a boost, as Governor Abdullahi Sule of Nasarawa State has signed a memorandum of understanding with Saro Africa Group for the establishment of a sugarcane plantation in the state. The $125 million investment for the production of sugar and ethanol will be sited in communities in Nasarawa and Doma local government areas of the state.
The best way to produce ethanol is from sugarcane, because you are able, Brazil is one of the biggest in the world today. Brazil produces close to 40 million tons of sugar annually, but when they say sugar, people look at it that they are only producing sugar. But believe me, about 40 to 50% of that is going to ethanol. That's what they do. The same thing with the US, the same thing with Thailand, the same thing with so many things. So Nigeria, we're actually breaking grounds into a different area altogether. We're having people who are coming to produce sugarcane for ethanol. In the process of producing sugar for ethanol, you have the opportunity, to also produce power, and from the other side, you can produce the sugar itself. And on our own side, we have provided the infrastructure, for you to be able to go in and out. We have done the best we can, to provide you with the enough security to go in and out. But more importantly, communities have accepted you.
The 2022 Multidimensional Poverty Index, recently launched by the National Bureau of Statistics, reveals that 63% of Nigerians, representing 133 million people, are multidimensionally poor. The report further broke down the numbers, highlighting regions and states with the highest poverty rate in the country. Our next report takes you to Sokoto State, the state with the highest multidimensional poverty rate.
Exactly 1 month ago, on November 17th, the National Bureau of Statistics launched the results of the 2022 Multidimensional Poverty Index in Abuja. The survey highlights the poverty status of the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory. According to the report, 65% of Nigerians, representing 133 million people, are multidimensionally poor. States like Sokoto, Bayelsa, and Jigawa lead the table of the poorest states in Nigeria. The lack of access to basic amenities, food insecurity, and low level of education are some of the parameters used by the National Bureau of Statistics in this report. Some residents of Sokoto State agree with NBS report. Intervention in education and the development of agriculture are considered key steps that will upscale the standard of living in the state.
Government should make more emphasis, or should give more emphasis on education of children at basic level. And not only education, let's government inculcate the spirit of agriculture, catch them young. Let agriculture be one of the emphasis right from the basic level. We are leading in onion production. We are also leading in rice production. So why don't we develop rice, livestock, and vegetable value chain?
The government of Sokoto State, well, they have done their best in terms of alleviating poverty. They are still doing efforts, but that effort is not good enough. We know they have invested heavily in agriculture. They are investing in infrastructure, roads. They are investing in education. But looking at that data, no matter how we can criticize that data, there is need for the government to do more in alleviating some of these indices that have been identified by NBC, so that we can change the narration.
Like several other states in the north, Sokoto State is an agrarian state with huge potential in agriculture. However, the potential has not been fully tapped to improve the standard of living for citizens in the state.
If the state is to overcome this sort of rating subsequently, then efforts should be geared towards ensuring that they have a productive chain, that people are being engaged, rather than this idea of giving grant and all that. Now, a good number of these people that have obtained this grant, some of them, with no apology, they end up using this money to marry and adding more problem again to themselves.
If this statistic will go on, I know in how many years that come, if the certain parameters or certain actions have not been taken, still Sokoto State will remain at that level. If the government and the people of the state stakeholders were not pure looking at the things objectively and to be proactive in terms to combat or uplift the citizen of the state.
The 2022 National Bureau of Statistics Multidimensional Poverty Index recorded the highest level of poverty in recent years. The Sokoto state government did not respond to requests on what the present administration has done to improve the poverty rate in the state.
The remains of Nigeria's ambassador to Spain, Ademola Seriki, have been laid to rest this evening in Lagos. This followed the arrival of his body from Madrid, Spain earlier today, which was received at his residence in Surulere before being taken to his final resting place. His wives, family members and friends were present to bid him farewell as he was interred at the Ikoyi Vaults and Gardens. The diplomat was said to have died peacefully, surrounded by his family members. He became Nigeria's ambassador to Spain in 2021 with concurrent accreditation as a permanent representative of Nigeria to the United Nations World Tourism Organization, UNWTO. Before setting off to Spain, Mr. Seriki held various positions in government, including Minister of Interior from 2009 to 2010. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family at this trying time. Now, most Nigerians appear to be adjusting to the issuance of the redesigned Naira notes while gearing up for the cash withdrawal limit policy, which kicks off in about 3 weeks. However, the matter is not yet settled at the legislature, as some lawmakers are asking for adjustment to the limits as set by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Our correspondent, John Mekwa, reports that Nigerians are weighing the possible disruption this could bring to their daily transactions.
To ensure a strong and effective legal tender.
Nigeria's Central Bank Governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, has been very busy in recent times. From the redesigning of the Naira, which was unveiled and subsequently released for circulation from the 15th of December, to the cash limit policy, which becomes effective on the 9th of January 2023 and will allow individuals to withdraw 20,000 Naira daily and 100,000 Naira cumulatively in a week, while corporates are allowed up to 500,000 Naira a week. This is still generating different conversations from Nigeria's legislative chambers.
If you want to stop banditry, make it impossible for them to have cash. 2, we pass the law on this floor. It's our law.
Every day as I sit here in this chamber, I have every day not less than 100 people, laborers working on my farm, and they have to be paid by 5 o'clock. Cash, of course.
Senator Adamu Bukachua is referring to locations like Wafango community in Yola South local government area of Adamawa State, where neither point-of-sale kiosks nor ATMs are easily sighted. The village head, Abubakar Njida, expresses frustration at the new policy.
Now, for me to withdraw as a trader, I withdraw about 500,000 Naira to buy rams and cows. How do you think 20,000 Naira will help me?
For the over 1.4 million mobile money agents who have attempted to cover areas which banks and ATMs have not spread to, there's need for some concession.
An average agent serves about a minimum of 20 customers a day. And let's just say, with this peg that the CBN has released, an average agent would need about 400,000. So what we're actually appealing is that the CBN should give a somewhat recognition for agents through our principles, where we can have access to cash and serve Nigerians in areas where there are no banks and ATM machines.
The CBN governor may have heard some of these concerns and gives a hint that there may be possible adjustments.
I cannot say that we are going to be rigid, but it is not to say that we will reverse. It is not to say that we will change timing, but whether it is about tweaking some amount to be a little bit higher or a little bit lower and all the rest of it, we will do so because we are humans. We want to make sure that we make life good for our people.
Among experts and industry watchers, the policy would have been commendable had the needed infrastructure been in place.
There are positive sides of electronic transactions, and Nigerians are welcoming it, and it is gradually getting into the system and getting operational. And I'm saying that we should make haste slowly. We should take it in a manner that will be much more beneficial. They should do 500,000 per day for individual.
Some of the lawmakers are also asking that the policy be implemented, but only after the limit has been adjusted. Ini John Mekwa, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the Apex Bank has countered claims that its new policy limiting cash withdrawals is targeted at point-of-sales agents. According to the CBN's Director of Banking Supervision, Mustafa Haruna, POS agents are not endangered in any way as a result of the CBN policy, as allowances have been made for compelling cases to withdraw above the set limits. He appealed to people to see the initiative as one aimed at contributing to economic growth and development. Mr. Haruna was a guest on our program, Sunrise.
Let me just correct an impression. Not in any way are they endangered. And that is why we made that provision. Should you need cash? When you do the numbers, how much does a typical agent outlet need in a day? So you ask that question. So, I mean, people need to just see this as, a policy that is intended at, contributing to economic growth and development. And when Nigerians know the enormous benefits inherent in this policy, I'm very sure it will shift mindsets. It is typical, when you introduce something new, there is always that trepidation and apprehension. But that's why we are also combining it with extensive and, sustained, campaigns and sensitization just to, ensure that Nigerians understand, what is at play, what is involved, and what is in it for them.
In Taraba State, Governor Darius Ishaku is advocating stronger collaboration and engagement with other states in the northeastern region to identify their core requirements for the development of the region by the Northeast Development Commission. The governor says the aim is to help the region pull out of underdevelopment, poverty and illiteracy. The governor was speaking during the graduation of ICT trainees in Jalingo, the state capital.
These are the latest beneficiaries of the Northeast intervention to get young people off the street. This is part of efforts to empower young people in the northeastern region. These young people in Taraba have been trained in various forms of information and communication technology, including computer graphics and phone repairs.
This scheme was developed by the Northeast Development Commission as one of the efforts in supporting capacity and supporting competence and also upscaling skill among our young people. Some who are still undergraduate, some who are not even in the university system, some who have graduated already but do not have particular skills that can help them to be marketable in the employment space. So this scheme started 2 streams ago, and we have churned out across the 6 northeast states, we have churned out over 3,500 graduates like you.
The Taraba state government commends the commission for their efforts, promising to synergize with the commission to reduce unemployment.
The NEDC development programs are in line with our transformation plan, known as the Taraba State Rescue Master Plan 2017 to 2025. It is a multifaceted approach that has had a significant impact on people's lives. The Taraba State government will continue to work with the NEDC to achieve sustainable development in the areas of education, health, infrastructure development, youth employment, ICT, and the environment. We advocate for stronger collaboration and engagement with the states of the Northeast area in order to identify the core requirements of each state.
Be what I want to be. If I work hard at it, I'll be what I want to be. Thank you.
The NEDC has so far established 18 ICT training centers in all the senatorial districts of the Northeast region and graduated a total of 3,500 ICT trainees from these centers.
Now let's find out what's happening in the world of business. Laddie Williams is standing by with details.
Thanks, Melinda. In business news, the Central Bank Governor, Godwin Emefiele, is expected to appear before the House of Representatives on Tuesday next week to explain issues over the new cash withdrawals and other recent policies of the Apex Bank. This comes after he earlier informed the lawmakers in a letter of his inability to honor a summons to appear before the House on Thursday this week due to his trip with President Muhammadu Buhari to the United States of America. On Thursday last week, the lawmakers summoned Mr. Emefiele during plenary following a motion of a matter of urgent public importance moved by member Aliyu Magaji. They were also expected to grill the CBN governor over several issues, including the act establishing the CBN, especially Section 5 and Section 8, subsection 4, by failing to brief the National Assembly before rolling out policies. Meanwhile, 2 days after the official issuance of the redesigned higher denominations of the Naira, most commercial banks in the country appear to be rationing the new current notes from the central bank. Latest findings by Channels Television in some banking halls and automated teller machine points show that the old currencies are still being issued to customers. However, in some cases, shares were seen mixing a few new notes with the old bills in their over-the-counter payments to customers. However, while speaking on the conditions of anonymity, some bank officials say the rationing of the new Naira notes is normal, as over 85% of the old high denomination currency notes were still in circulation or being hoarded. They also explained that there will be a parallel run of the redesigned Naira notes, as they expect the CBN will be pumping more supply of the new banknotes into the banks from next week. And the Standard Organization of Nigeria has pledged continued support to micro, small and medium enterprises to enable them meet up with global specifications and standards. The Director General of the SON, Farouk Salim, who made this known to journalists in Lagos, says the agency has taken some steps towards ensuring superiority of local products and acceptability in global markets. These include equipping the National Metrology Institute in Enugu, the Leather and Textile Laboratory in Kaduna, and the Foods, Chemical and Electrical Laboratories in Ogba, Lagos. He mentioned that SON has over the years put in place programs for capacity building of MSMEs with discounts, waivers and product certification processes to ensure that products and services meet specified requirements and compete favorably in the international space. A renewable energy arm of London-based supermajor Shell has completed an acquisition of the West African hybrid solar power solutions provider Daystar Power. A statement released by Shell said the deal was completed after securing approvals from the various regulatory agencies involved in the transaction. The landmark deal, which marks the first of such acquisition by the company in Africa, was first announced in late September. Daystar Power explained that this takeover by Shell would strengthen its operations growth in the region while expanding across the African continent. The energy firm will operate as a wholly owned subsidiary of Shell under its existing brand within Shell's Renewable and Energy Solutions business. And to the markets now. See the local stock market sentiment ended the trading week of December on the positive notes, adding 0.89% this week to a 1.51% increase recorded last week. The gain is largely attributed to bargain hunting for high-value equities such as Zenith Bank, FBN Holdings, and Lafarge, with support from other bellwether stocks. Similar positive sentiment was also seen across 4 out of the 5 major sectors of the NGX. Only the consumer goods counter recorded a downbeat performance for the week as it closed 0.20% in the red. Land Africa's share price tops a list of 32 gainers, up by more than 28%. Indicals led 27 other losers, down by 11.48%, while 97 equities remained unchanged in prices. The shares of Sterling Bank, Axis Holdings, and Chitico were the most significant contributors to a total of 814.08 million shares traded within the week. And at the unlisted securities market, activities ended the week negative as the NSE OTC Exchange Security Index fell further by more than 0.25%. Same time, the market capitalization fell by 2.61 billion naira to close the week at 930.74 billion naira due to sell pressure by investors. However, total volume of securities traded on the exchange increased by 644% week on week to 10.4 million units, while total value of securities traded during the week decreased by 23.58% to 32.05 million naira. Meanwhile, UBN Property, which led to other losers, down by about 9%, was also the most traded security on the NSE OTC market this week. And that's it on business news. Back to Melinda with the rest of News at 10.
And for what to look forward to on the world of sports, here's Victor Matthias.
Indeed, Melinda. Let's now begin with the results from the FIFA World Cup, where Croatia beat Morocco 2-1 in the third-place playoff of the World Cup as forward Mislav Orsic scored the winner with a brilliant bending strike. Josko Guardiola put Croatia ahead with a superb header in the 7th minute, but Ashraf Dari equalized 2 minutes later before Orsic sealed victory for the 2018 runners-up Croatia. Croatia showed their class once more by clinching their third top-3 finish at the World Cup with a playoff victory over history makers Morocco. And Moroccan fans partied outside Khalifa International Stadium despite their team's 2-1 loss to Croatia in the World Cup third-place playoff. The fans insist they are proud of the Atlas Lions and will treasure the memories of this World Cup. Morocco had already exceeded expectations by reaching the World Cup semi-finals at Qatar 2022, beating Belgium, Canada, Spain and Portugal along the way. And France's Raphael Varane, Ibrahima Konate and Kingsley Coman, who missed training on Friday with a virus, rejoined their teammates in training on the eve of the World Cup final clash against Argentina. The three players started the session, which was open to the media in the first 15 minutes. Midfielder Aurelien Tchouameni and left-back Theo Hernandez, who also missed training on Friday because of knocks to their hip and knee respectively, were also on the pitch with the rest of the squad. And Argentina stepped up preparations as they prepare to face defending champions France at the 88,000 capacity Lusail Stadium. The Argentines are seeking to win the title for the third time after winning in 1978 and 1986. The storyline underpinning the match for most of the world is whether Lionel Messi can get his hands on the trophy at the fifth attempt to finally lift himself up alongside Diego Maradona in the hearts of his nation. And FIFA's head of global football development, Arsene Wenger, has insisted that the 2022 World Cup in Qatar has demonstrated players are lasting longer in their careers despite criticism over workload. The former Arsenal manager says the likes of Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo and Luka Modric have all performed well in Qatar despite being in their mid to late 30s. On Friday, FIFA President Gianni Infantino announced plans for a 32-team Club World Cup beginning in 2025.
We have not experienced tournaments, World Cups with 35 years old players being dominant, but we had Giroud, we have Messi, Modric, 37 years old, with dominant players at this tournament. That shows a life of, despite all the negativity about health of players and welfare of players, the life of a top-level sportsman lasts longer. They are ready earlier and they finish later. But Messi is the name who comes up. I played in 2006 in a Champions League final against Barcelona. Messi was starting to play in the team. That's 2006. We are in 2022. That's 16 years later, and he's still in contest for being player of the tournament. So overall, we are all grateful for the pleasure he has given us in these 16 years.
They say age is just but a number, and these players are proving that saying. But that's a wrap on sports news. It's back to Melinda with the rest of the news at 10. Thank you for watching. I'm Victor Matthias.
And thanks, Victor. They say age is just in the mind as well. And talking about age, the president clocked 80 today. And what a way to celebrate the day. As can be seen In some images, yes, these images, President Muhammadu Buhari is on his way back to the country from the United States, where he joined other leaders from Africa at the U.S.-Africa Summit in Washington, D.C. President Buhari is surrounded by his entourage and the flight crew, obviously wishing him a happy birthday. Before leaving the United States, the president met with Nigerians living in that country, whom he urged to be good ambassadors of their fatherland, while noting that Nigerians have continued to excel in their chosen professions in the United States. Also before his departure, President Buhari cautioned Western nations over what he describes as frivolous issuance of travel advisories on Nigeria, urging the international media to be more objective in their reportage of the country. President Buhari stated this during an interactive session in Washington, D.C., co-hosted by the United States Institute of Peace, USIP, the International Republican Institute, the National Endowment for Democracy, and the International Foundation for Electoral Systems. Amongst other issues, the president addressed at the meeting, according to a statement by his media aide, Mr. Garba Shehu. He also confirmed and affirmed that INEC is ready for the 2023 elections and gave his personal commitment to ensuring that the electoral processes remain transparent, credible, free, and fair. In the meantime, the United States has joined African voices in demanding inclusion of new permanent seats in the United Nations Security Council for countries in Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean, and full membership of the African Union in the G20. This came to the fore on the final day of the U.S.-Africa Summit in Washington, D.C.
It's the final day of the summit, and heads of states and delegations are dotting the I's and crossing the T's on the bilateral promises and discussions since day one. It was also a day where African leaders and the U.S. president sat down to strategize on the critical issue of food insecurity facing the continent.
Today, famine once more stalks the Horn of Africa. High food prices and high trade barriers are taking a toll on the lives and livelihoods of millions of people across the continent. And conflict, climate change, COVID-19 continue to compound the impacts of the global food crisis for all countries around this table. And the challenges we face are both clear and they are urgent. That's why this year alone, the United States is committed nearly $11 billion in humanitarian and food security assistance to deal with food insecurity, including a dramatic surge on the Horn of Africa.
Vice President Kamala Harris gives a wrap of the summit on managing areas of global and regional issues, announcing support for countries in Africa to have permanent seats in the United Nations Security Council.
The United States joins African nations to seek consensus on a significant expansion of the UN Security Council to include new permanent seats for countries in Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean. As President Joe Biden announced earlier today, our administration will also seek full membership for the African Union in the G20.
Elsewhere, floaters, First Lady of the United States, Jill Biden, hosted some of her counterparts, First Lady, and delegates at the National Museum of African American History and Culture, showcasing the historical relationship in different aspects that bond America and the continent of Africa.
In the late 1970s, I continued to travel to the continent, often as the travel editor of Essence magazine, and later in the 80s as the Africa section editor for a newspaper. Over the years and in the decades that followed, I learned many things. I learned about a spirituality that connected with the one I grew up with. I learned about the power of family and friendships throughout the continent, and a sense of shared responsibility for those less fortunate. However, the most important thing that I learned was how connected we on this side of the Atlantic are with you on that side.
And then, time for the heads of delegation family photo with the US President, AU Chairperson, other African leaders, signaling an end to the summit that was last held 8 years ago, and perhaps the beginning or continuation of a firmer relationship between the United States and the African continent. Millicent Walker, Channels Television News.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has been meeting with his top military chiefs just as his forces launch another wave of missiles at Ukraine's infrastructure. President Putin spent most of Friday at the headquarters of the Special Military Operation discussing ideas for his country's next move in Ukraine. And this comes as Ukrainian military officials have hinted that Russia was planning an offensive, perhaps early next year. And the main news again. PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar today promised to resolve the security challenges Imo State is facing as he continued his campaign in the southeast. I'm Melinda Akinlami on behalf of the team. Good night.